Welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to continue to innovate the 2010 format, looking at a Garchomp deck. Now, looking at the Garchomp itself, Garchomp just does everything right. Guard Claw does 40 damage. This is going to be reduced, and then reduces damage done to it by 20 during your opponent's next turn. This can be easily fulfilled with a double colorless energy, or just colorless energies in general. Things like Call Energy, Warp Energy, or Cyclone Energy can all fulfill this requirement. And then Speed Impact is 120 damage. Now, it does do minus 20 damage for each energy attached to the defending Pokemon, but this is where Dragon Intimidation comes in. If Garchomp is your active Pokemon and is damaged by an opponent's attack, even if Garchomp is knocked out, choose an energy attached to the attacking Pokemon and put it back into your opponent's hand. Now, this isn't even on a coin flip. They hit you. You literally put an energy card attached to them back into their hand. This does a couple of different things. First off, the most obvious is that you're increasing that speed, impact, damage. But second of all, it gets very, very hard for them to build up any sort of momentum when every single time they're attaching an energy, it's just bouncing back to their hand, especially in the 2010 format. There really isn't any sort of energy acceleration. Now, going along with this, 130 hit points, free retreat. There's only one glaring weakness when it comes to Garchomp, and that's that plus 30 weakness to colorless, which means that Garchomp SP level X with a Lucario in play is going to one-hit KO you. Now, we play a few different ways to handle this, which we'll talk about in a bit. Now, one of the things that I absolutely loved when I was building and designing the Gardevoir deck that has been covered not only by my channel, but it's been played in numerous tournaments and been covered by many other old format channels, was that the strategy was to tank a Gardevoir, where essentially you put a Gardevoir in play and then you just keep switching between them. You'd be smacking them for 80 damage with Psychic Lock, shutting off powers, and then you just constantly be healing the Gardevoirs thanks to Nidoqueen. We can do a very similar strategy in this deck using Guard Claw. With an Expert Belt, we're going to hit for 60 damage, and that free retreat makes it very easy for us just to switch between Garchomps. Now, that's one strategy of the deck. Some matchups, just doing that, you're going to straight up win. Because you're hitting for 60 damage, you're reducing damage, and then you're healing damage. Essentially, thanks to Nidoqueen, whatever they're doing is minus 40, which in this format is incredibly strong. But you also have that high damage attack with Speed Impact, which gives you a lot more options. So basically, the strategy is we want to go with that switching between Garchomps and doing that healing strategy, but we want to look for opportunities to weave in that Speed Impact and take some really crucial knockouts on our opponent. So going along here, we play a 4-2-4 Garchomp. We just really want to maximize that Garchomp. We want to maximize the odds of getting it out, and then maximize just how many Garchomps our opponent has to fight through. I went with a 2-2 Claydol line in this deck, along with one Uxie. I do think there is some argument in decks like this to avoid going Claydol and then just go like 3-1 Uxie, for example. This makes it a little bit better against like SP decks, so they can't constantly drag up the Claydol and then try to snipe around it. We play one Ambipom. This is a Garchomp level X counter. If they try to use Dragon Rush and they discard the double colorless energy attached to the Garchomp level X, Snap Attack is going to one-hit knock them out. Now, let's say, for example, they try to get clever and have, like, let's say, a Lightning Energy and a double colorless. They've got to discard the double colorless energy to knock out the Garchomp, and then thanks to our intimidating Pokebody, we're just going to bounce the Lightning Energy back to their hand, once again allowing us to use Snap Attack. Now, very situationally, you can get a really easy first turn knockout using Snap Attack. Maybe you get really lucky, you go first, or you go second or whatever, and then you can just have that double color Snap Attack. Not very common, but it is something that I've seen come up. Now we also play one Relicanth. This has proven to be so strong, not only against SP decks, giving us a very easy counter to Luxray GL. As long as they have at least 2 tools in play, we're going to hit for 60 damage. We'll double that thanks to Luxray level X's weakness, and give us an easy knockout on that Luxray level X. So essentially, we do have two really easy little soft counters to SP decks in there. But going along with that, this is also an absolute monster against Gardevoir, because what you're going to find is they are going to want to put 2 or 3 expert belts in play. And then this will let us, and then when they try to switch between the Gardevoirs, we can snipe one of them on the bench. Relicanth just has so many different uses. If you haven't already, check out the Donphan video we did last year. It's just another great example of how strong Relicanth can be. Then I went with a single copy of Spiritomb. The idea isn't that we are going to open with Spiritomb, just that if we need it, it is in the deck, we can use a Roseanne's for it, or we can use a Call Energy and grab it. I think this is one of the cards where we could kind of deviate how we want to build the deck. And all in all, I think I've tested 5 or 6 different variations of the deck. And I think you very easily could play something similar to Gardevoir, where you are playing 3 Spiritomb in the deck, or even 2, saying, hey, I just want to make sure I don't prize it. I think all of that is perfectly acceptable. 1 Unknown G. Now, what has typically happened in 2010 is I built the Gardevoir deck that really dominated the format. And it came to the point where my younger brother and I just didn't enjoy playing the format anymore, because everything was just, Gardevoir was so dominant. So a lot of the times it went from playing 2010 to me trying to find decks that counter Gardevoir. And this was a deck that I built that had a very strong Gardevoir matchup, but my little brother got smart and realized that if he took a Dusknoir and he just piled a bunch of energy on it, I couldn't actually win the game because I didn't have any ways to really get around it. So Unknown G is kind of a built-in counter if you get against a smart Gardevoir player. Unknown Q, it's just a really strong option. Say we open with Garchomp and Roseanne's. We can Roseanne's for Unknown Q, Spiritomb, and then just set up from there. There's also some different things where if they do try to do that bright-looking trick on the Claydol, we do have that Unknown Q. We can attach it and then just retreat it back for a single energy instead of needing 2. Just gives us a few more options there. 101 Nidoqueen. I don't hate a 1/1/1, but a 101 seems to play fine. I also think there is a small argument you could make for doing like a 3/2/3 Garchomp and then like a 2/1/2 Nidoqueen or something like that. But generally speaking, Nidoqueen is not going to be a major attacker for you. For Roseanne's, for communication. Now, once again, I think this is another way you could kind of you could go a couple different ways with it. What I found the more I played 2010 is I like to play decks with Cynthia's Feelings. I think Cynthia's Feelings is so underrated in this format. And drawing 8 cards is great, especially when you're playing against speed decks like SP. But you want to be able to play your Cynthia's, draw your 8 cards, and then start making plays after that. So what I found is you need to play cards like Communication and then Luxury Ball. Playing those higher counts lets you Cynthia's, and then ideally if you had a Rare Candy, Communication, things like that, you can continue to make those plays. It's just really strong in general versus just maxing BBs. At least that's what I've found. If your opponent does play, like, let's say a heavy Spiritomb, and you're like, well, man, I'm playing 4 Communication, Luxury Ball, those are all dead cards. That's why we do play that single copy as well, because we have 4 Roseanne's, 2 BBs, 4 Call Energy. So we have 10 outs to go and find that Spiritomb, and then we can just start Darkness Racing underneath Spiritomb as well. 1 Luxury Ball. No reason not to play it in this deck. It can grab literally anything. I went 2 Cynthia's, 2 Judges. I think you could argue this. You could go 3-1. I think you could go 4-0, 0-4. However you want to do it. Judge is good in the SP matchup. Just, trying to stop that Cyrus chain or just putting them off the cards they need. 4 Rare Candy. Want to make sure we can get those quick and early Garchomps and also hit that Nidoqueen when we need to. 3 Expert Belt. I've talked about this a lot. Don't play 2. If you play 2, you're just never going to hit it when you need it. And if you play 4, it just gets too repetitive. 3 is the right number you want to play in this format. 1 Night Maintenance, 1 Warp Point. Believe it or not, it's pretty easy for this deck to take, 2, 3, 4 prizes, and you want to try to find ways to steal those last couple. Warp Point is almost guaranteed a prize because generally speaking, whatever they have to send up is going to get knocked out by speed impact. Energy lineup here, once again, I think you could do this a bunch of different ways. I'm sorry, we play one Night Maintenance as well. Just a generally a good card. You would think it's for the Garchomp, but generally speaking, it's for reusing our tech options here. The Ambipom, the Relicanth, Spiritomb, Unknown G, Unknown Q, or if our opponent's able to knock out the Nidoqueen. These are all pretty matchup specific, but the matchups they're good at, and it's really nice to have that second copy, but they're so specific you don't really want to play 2 copies of it. Energy lineup, we go with 4 Call Energy, absolute must in this deck. So incredibly strong too. 4 Double Colorless, once again, absolute must in this deck. There's really not an incentive not to play it. Double Colorless, another energy, you're using that speed impact for 120. 2 Fighting for the Relicanth, just enough to make sure that we don't prize a single copy of it. But at the same time too, we want to be able to play some of our more tech energies. I went with 2 Warp Energy, 2 Cyclone Energy. This is just kind of a nod to, I know SP decks are going to be trying to send up, drag up our Claydol and snipe around it, so we want to make sure that we have those outs to that. At the same time though too, Cyclone Energy is going to help us steal cheap prizes against like decks like Gardevoir, if they try to wall us off with a Dusknoir or something like that. So I think there is a ton of different ways you can do this, and I've got a couple of variations of this deck up my sleeve that I think I'll save for some later videos. But this is what I found to be the most successful. Matchup wise, I would say this is probably a lower tier 1. You're going to have a harder time with Dialga Chomp just because Dialga shuts off the body and can build enough energy on a level X where your speed impact is not going to be able to do a ton of damage, and neither is Guard Claw. Good matchups for it. I would say you do well. Gardevoir is going to be a decent matchup. SP, I think it depends a lot on the starts. And then just some of those kind of off or random matchups, this sort of deck is going to do well. Basically anything that can't do a ton of damage and can't hit your bench consistently, you're probably going to beat. Just due to that Guard Claw, Nidoqueen, and switching between Garchomps. Now, I did want to talk, this variation of the deck is mine, and it's different enough from anything I've seen in the past. I feel pretty confident taking credit for it. At the same time, too, I certainly was not the first person to play Garchomp in 2010. So let's give a nod to Mark Garcia here. This was the list he used to make top 8 at Nationals that year. He's got a lot of good things in it, but things that I don't personally feel translated super well as the format continued to grow and evolve. The level X, I think, is very good. I personally didn't play it in here just because a lot of the decks that it's good against play Nidoqueen, and we don't really play enough to... there's enough healing in the format that the bench damage isn't super impactful. In certain matchups, it is nice to have that extra 10 HP to kind of build in, to make it a little bit easier when you're switching between the Garchomps, get a little extra health in there. And then he plays Dusknoir. Drew Gretzky, top 32 Worlds that year, doing the exact same thing. I personally don't like Dusknoir in here. One, as soon as people know about it, you lose any sort of surprise factor. And I honestly think the entire benefit of playing this sort of deck is that you do have that healing option to switch between them. If you're playing against decks like Gyarados, you really, really, really do want that healing option for the deck. And then the Crobats, I think, are okay. The problem with Crobat is it's a power. So if you play against Gardevoir, it's dead. And then it's a searchable damage, but I'm just not a huge fan of it. It's not bad. I'm just not a huge fan of it. And I think the other thing that's interesting is he does play his elf. And his elf is obviously very, 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 very good. But it's also a liability because it's always going to be a free prize on the board if you're playing against a deck like SP. And one of the advantages, in my opinion, of playing a deck like this is you can get away without having to play his elf. Because if you do prize, let's say, a Claydol, it's not a big deal. If you prize a Garchomp, it's not a big deal. You do fine without playing that stuff. A couple of things that he did play that I thought were very good was the Broken Time Space. I absolutely love those. I think you could very easily play, and maybe you even should play 2 Broken Time Space in this deck, especially if you're going with those Pokemon Communication. It'd be very nice to bump like Moonlight in the Gardevoir matchup and give you a little bit of additional speed against SP. So I would absolutely say Broken Time Space is incredibly good in this deck. He went with reversals. I think reversals are totally fine. They are game-winning cards, just they're on a coin flip. Generally, I don't really care what I'm knocking out as long as I'm knocking something out. That's why I went with the Warp Point and Cyclone options. He also played those, so I guess I went a little less heavy on it than he did. Went with a little bit more consistency, but definitely I took a lot of inspiration from this deck. And then Drew Gretzky, top 32 worlds, taking a lot of information, a lot of nods from Mark Garcia as well. And I think what Drew played is he played a very heavy SP package. He played Crobat, Ambipom, and then like a Luxray in the deck. Once again, very good, but I will also say that I don't really care what I knock out. I just want to win the prize trade. So I don't think you need the Luxray. I think it's a liability in certain matchups like Gardevoir. And I care a lot more that I'm just taking cheap and free prizes. So that's why I didn't go that route with it as well. But definitely a nod to both of those players. They definitely played the deck with some success. I just think for an updated 2010 format, this is just the way to go with the deck. Yeah, Dialga was a really, really, really big problem for the deck, and I had to find an answer to it. I do think you could tool the deck in a way where you could play Machamp in it. And I'm not saying that's the perfect answer, but I do think we could build the deck to play like a 101 Machamp in it. It'd be a little techy. You'd play like a 101 Nidoqueen, 101 Machamp. You'd only have the 2 fighting energies. Maybe forgo the judges, just play a higher Cynthia's Feeling count to try to get that off. And that would do really well against SP in general. Gives us a few more options against the deck. But yeah, that would just be my thought process on it. Anyways, I'm going to wrap up the video here. I hope you enjoyed it, and you got to see a new deck for the 2010 format that maybe you can add to your collection. Anyways, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot, and I hope to see you in the next video.